yesterday.
I think a lot of people would say it's a slightly easier matchup than playing into Teenage Faker. You know, Caps, one of our best mid laners here in Europe. The Unicorns of Love are going to remove Kha'Zix from the game to start us off here. And Splyce will get rid of the Evelyn, which was first picked by UOL yesterday.
Yeah, remember that Kold and WhiteKnight, the gank in the top lane against Giants, looked good. Just a slight misplay from the side of WhiteKnight resulted in the gank failing. Splyce still showing respect, still recognizing that this could be a big pick that they just don't want to deal with.
And a lot of the off-season strength for Splyce did come from their ability to analyze the game and to draft well. Peter Dunn joining them as a coach has really elevated their macro sense and their analytical sense.
One would expect.
One would expect.
Based on what many have said about Peter Dunn, a lot of respect has been shown towards his understanding of the game, but it is another thing of knowing about the game and then being able to teach it to his players. And we'll see how things progress as this game plays out. Remember, both these teams currently at 0-1 and looking to get their first win on the board.
Splyce losing to Fnatic yesterday, which is kind of to be expected, but also will obviously have dismayed them slightly. The Unicorns of Love losing to Giants is not what they would like at all to start them off. We've got the Alistar, the Kalista bans here from the Unicorns of Love, and Splyce have removed Zoe and Shen.
Now, yesterday, Unicorns prioritized a very early Evelyn, and as we've already identified, that has been taken off the board. Sejuani and Jarvan are both strong junglers that are free to play, but instead, Unicorns are looking to get their comfort for Exileh in the middle lane. Along with the junglers, we've seen a lot of mid lane focus, and Ryze seems to be the go-to pick for many mid laners in Europe, and Azir is often the common answer. We saw it earlier today. And if you get to that late game point, Azir really can do a lot of damage.
I was just quickly glancing over to the stage to make sure this isn't actually just the same teams from game one drafting exactly the same. If it is, we'll have the Sejuani Cho'Gath here for the Unicorns of Love, but they are known to spice things up a little bit more than that, so we'll have to wait and see exactly where they go. Samux will get his Ezreal, and now we're looking for that third Unicorns of Love pick before we enter the second ban phase.
So I like this from Unicorns, going a little bit more standard with their composition. Ezreal considered a very strong AD carry around the world. Kleptomancy seems to just get him to his item spikes that much sooner, and he does scale rather well into the late game. Synergize that with a Braum, who offers a lot of disengage and a decent amount of lane power into the Tahm Kench. Guarantees a strong bottom lane for the Unicorns of Love.
So Splyce here have a few options available. You can go for a jungler, go for an AD carry, or go for a top laner. Looking at the rounds, looking at the state of this, where do you think they're going to reach?
You would imagine that they would save their top lane pick until a little bit later in the draft, unless they want to pick something early and target ban away. Instead, their focus is on getting a little bit of wave clear down in the bottom lane. We have seen a few unsealed spellbook Sivirs over in the LCK, where a few of them have been taking some interesting summoner spells, which we can track once we get into the game. But already, Splyce, they have a lot of scaling in their composition with both the Sivir and the Azir.
And Unicorns of Love on the other side, Ezreal and Ryze do scale pretty well as well. So we'll have to see exactly what these teams want to round out these compositions with. The Sejuani being banned by Splyce, removing that overpowering jungler. And the Unicorns of Love will probably look for a top lane ban, actually. I thought they were going to go towards the jungle, but they're going to take Gangplank away from the hands of Odoamne.
The problem for them is if they ban away more junglers, they recognize that they get the next round of picks. So if Splyce, they can narrow the jungle pool, then pick a jungler for themselves, and it makes things even harder for the Unicorns to get themselves a jungler that they're happy with. So their eyes are on the top lane. They're saying, you know what, Splyce, if you're going to go for an early jungle pick, we're going to try and make sure that we get a comfort top laner for ourselves.
Jarvan is going to be banned away by Splyce as well. We'll have to wait and see exactly where Unicorns of Love go with their next ban as well. Sorry, apologies, of course, for the slight inaccuracy on the screen there. We've got it fixed. Excellent, we're back into picks and bans. I was wondering what the little picture-in-picture was about.
It was
second ban.
Just in case, you know, you wanted to see it twice.
Some people with double vision.
Perfect.
Yeah. Excellent. Works out so well for them. There's a Skarner ban.
All right.
From the Unicorns of Love. Remember, yesterday they did actually miss a ban because they ran out of time. And today they're going for the Skarner ban. So Unicorns of Love, they've got a ban strategy ready, as they know what
the moment Skarner was buffed on 8.1, I had Captain Flowers down my ear being like, have you seen the buffs? And I was like, yes, okay, I've seen the buffs. So clearly...
You're just like, I've seen Medic, I've seen the buffs. It's fine.
Xerxe has clearly been working on that champion, and Unicorns, they don't want to have to deal with it. So looks like Splyce going for the Ivern. We did see that from Trick over on the BBQ Olivers. And Xerxe going back to a big comfort pick for him that he brought out back when he was on the Unicorns of Love himself.
Yeah, one of the first players to play Ivern in Europe, actually.
In the world, really.
Yeah, in the world. And he did a very good job on it. Would like to see him be a little bit more instrumental in the early game today. The Rengar is going to get locked in for Kold, and that's a total departure from what he's used to. We're much more used to seeing him on these tank junglers, with Gragas's, you know, people who can influence the game.
Utility heavy.
Utility heavy, whereas the Rengar is much more aggressive.
Now, I wonder if they go for, I was just about to say either the Cho'Gath or the Gnar, something, a bit of a safe blind pick. We have seen a lot of top laners in Europe say that Gnar right now is the safest blind pick, but instead they're going for the Ornn. Now, I'm looking at Odo and I'm thinking this could be an opportunity for the Illaoi. I've heard many top laners say that she is a pretty strong counter pick to the Ornn. I believe we may have already seen it as well in professional play. But does it fit with the composition that Splyce are going for? Because right now they have the Sivir ultimate to kind of act as an engage, but they have no real way to start fights aside from that. So maybe they want a bit more of a tank. Instead, they're going for the counter pick.
Illaoi is going to get locked in the EU LCS, and she is a counter pick to the Ornn. We're going to break that down a little bit more when we get into the game, Vedius, because just before we talked about that, you mentioned something interesting about this Splyce lineup. I don't see the full engage. I don't see how they're actually going to be able to catch the Unicorns of Love.
Well, what they do have is a lot of late game damage, that's for sure. And they all, along with a lot of wave clear. This is something very similarly to what we saw from the Vitality roster. The key difference between the Sivir and the Caitlyn is that range differential. Sivir does have the spell shield to help keep herself alive, but in team fights, she does so much AoE damage. So in those late game fights, it's something that you have to show a lot of respect for. On the Unicorns of Love side, they have the Ryze and the Ezreal. You really need to be active around the mid game towards those big item spikes. And as we saw in the last game, if you let the Ryze get too much into the late game, he just can't output the same kind of damage that the Azir can. And the range difference makes it so difficult for Ryze to really get onto those backline carry threats. So a bit of a timer on this Unicorns of Love composition. They're going to look to try and force a lot in the early to mid game.
So Sheepy just waiting to shake Peter Dunn's hand there. Final words, of course, going across towards his team. There's the handshake. And we should be getting onto the Summoner's Rift pretty rapidly. I really want to see how these teams bounce off each other, because both of them coming into today are 0 and 1. You don't want to be in the unenviable position of being 0-2 at the end of week 1. This is the game. This is the game that matters for the Unicorn and for Splyce. And this is the game that they have to show up to really cement their spot in the EU LCS. We're going to get onto the Summoner's Rift for our second game of the day. And Vedius, I know you want to talk about it. I know you like watching anime. Let's talk about the tentacles in the top lane. It's Illaoi into Ornn. Let's talk about that matchup.
Wow. All right. Illaoi into Ornn. Many pros consider Illaoi to be a good counter pick into the Ornn, largely because, number one, she trades extremely well against the Ornn. The percentage max health damage on her W is really effective against these tanks that often do build a lot of early magic damage. In the side lane, she has a lot of threat, and typically she just does well into tanks. We saw her in the past as an answer to things like the Cho'Gath, and Ornn is very similar. You'll also know that she is running the Kleptomancy rune as well. It's very easy to proc it because you can also get it from her Test of Fate, the E. Every time you hit onto that little ghost, you'll be able to proc and you'll get a lot of early gold. And once you get those big items, you'll see how Ornn starts to struggle in that 1 versus 1. But if Illaoi does fall behind, her value in the later game can often weaken. She has a lot of damage, but she doesn't have a huge amount of utility. It can often be difficult to get into these fights. But fortunately, by also going for the Inspiration Tree, you have that extra cooldown reduction on things like your Flash, which means it's more readily available to jump into the thick of things and start smashing all of your opponents.
Odoamne smash in the top lane. We'll have to see if WhiteKnight can deal with him. Yesterday, he did not have the best of performances. WhiteKnight struggled. We talked about that early gank where WhiteKnight had the misplay that didn't allow Kold to get the kill. But we have actually seen Ornn sometimes getting a favorable matchup where we wouldn't always expect it. It seems a couple of Ornns beat out Nars earlier in the week as well. So this is where we want to put a lot of our focus in the early game. Just watch as Odoamne tries to harass down WhiteKnight. Mid lane, probably going to be pretty much the same as we've seen across the course of a lot of the games in the EU LCS.
You can see Nisqy he has been able to get a bit of an early push. This time around, he's the one in the Azir matchup. He was the one struggling against Capses yesterday. And in the bottom lane, you're seeing a lot of push coming out from the Sivir. Very much what you'd expect against the Ezreal. But he too is running the Kleptomancy rune, which means that he's going to generate a lot of gold. And once he gets what you would expect to be an early Trinity Force, we did see a slight variation yesterday. He just has a lot more early trading power. He's going to hit that spike a little bit sooner than Kobbe, and that's when they can start to look to try and force a couple of fights.
See, Exileh dodging around Nisqy's plays pretty well here. Have to remember that Exileh was one of the premier Ryze players for a long time here in Europe. Fell off a little bit, you know, middle of last split, start of last split. Quite a lot of last split.
It wasn't the best year for Exileh in 2017. However, he showed some promising things on LeBlanc, and then he ended up dying to a roam from Ruin. We will be keeping an eye on how he does. He has started off with the Ignite, and you can already see how far forward he's playing in the lane. A couple of deep wards from Kold in the top side have given him a bit more information to allow him to play like this. So we do see Xerxe heading towards the bot side of the map.
That we do, and bringing my eyes towards that bot side as well. Kobbe has taken the Unsealed Spellbook on this Sivir, so we need to track what some of the spells he's using. We've seen AD carries in LCK switch to an early teleport to get back into the lane. We've seen them go exhaust in the late game to stop something like a Rengar, just one-shotting them later on.
You have quite a lot of options. I also like seeing inspiration on champions like Tahm Kench do run the cleanse, can be surprisingly effective. Now Xerxe just helping Nisqy in the mid as Kold makes his way over there as well. Early Cloud Drake likely not going to be the highest of priority for either team. Keep our eyes on Kold as he postures around the mid lane.
It's great to see Exileh back on his most played champion. Does have a tendency to step a little bit too far forward in the mid lane. If I recall correctly, he had the highest forward percentage of any mid laner last split. I'm sure my stats team will tell me if I'm incorrect there. Just very often he would push forward in the lane and get caught out, and it actually looks like Kold is holding the lane here for him as he teleports back in with the Unsealed Spellbook. Now Vedius, it's a pretty slow early game. We're about 4.5 minutes in, nothing much has happened. The junglers have been, teasing out opportunities.
Typically what you'd expect.
Anything.
Yeah,
well, not in my solo queue games. Level 1 invades, let's go. But what are we expecting to see? Where is the real point of the map that we need to be focusing down on and we need to be watching as this game develops?
Well, I mean, as we talked about in the draft, the onus is a bit on the Unicorns of Love to try and make some proactive plays around the mid-game, where you have things like the Ryze ultimate, the Rengar ultimate, once Samux has hit that early spike of what you would expect to be the Trinity Force, but some have varied in terms of the randomization. And you have the Ornn engage, which is on a relatively low cooldown, and you can use it to just start a lot of fights. Whereas for Splyce, they're much more geared towards the late game. You have things like Xerxe on the Ivern. You're also looking at the Azir and the Sivir, who do a lot of late game damage the longer the game progresses. So for them, it's just very much about farming, scaling, just biding their time, and not needing to be hyper aggressive in this early portion of the map.
I don't like that answer, Vedius.
I'm sorry, but right now, a lot of the meta is very much towards scaling and teamfighting later on. Aside from teams like Vitality, we haven't seen a huge amount of early playmaking compositions because there's so much risk associated with them, and if you don't properly execute, there's just a big gamble that your whole early game can end in disaster, very similarly to what we saw from the Unicorns of Love composition yesterday. So if you're confident in your ability, it can certainly work out. But do you really want to take that risk, especially in a best-of-1 format?
Not at the moment, especially since a lot of these teams are still working out how to work together. Entirely new rosters in some of our LCS teams. Here we've got one member surviving on Splyce, a couple of members surviving on the Unicorns of Love. There's a lot of change going on at the moment in the EU LCS, and teams are working out exactly what playstyle they want to bring to Summoner's Rift. Unicorns of Love especially. We're still wondering exactly how they're going to play as a team. Are they still going to be the group up in mid and fight sort of team that we saw from the Unicorns across the last few years, or are they going to have to adapt? Are they going to have to change as things develop?
Yeah, it was an interesting discussion that Amazing and Deficio had with regards to the Unicorns about whether Hylissang and Vizicachi were the main core reason behind that kind of playstyle, or whether or not it was Sheepy in the direction that he liked to play the game and how he coached his team. Because so far, especially with the first game that the Unicorns showed, they really weren't that very focused on let's group mid, let's force a lot of team fights. They tried to play this 1-3-1 style, which was obviously very difficult to execute. And this time round, I'd still say that they can force a lot of fights with their composition, and it can very much be revolved around the mid game. But again, it's very much about trying to make things happen around the mid game once they've gotten themselves a couple of items.
Started to see these ultimates being hit for the Unicorns of Love members, and you can see they're moving around the map a little bit more. Kold's going in, trying to steal away this red buff from Xerxe. Exileh moved up here as well. Totoro's all the way up here from the bottom lane. Daisy's going to join the fight. It's a 2v2.
And Daisy and red buff are winning right now. Jungle creeps 1, champion 0.
Xerxe didn't get the full channel off there. Daisy is going to die. So Unicorns of Love have invested a lot of time into this, but they will be able to steal away the red buff.
They retain their honor, not losing to the jungle creeps. Kold able to get a successful steal off, but Samux forced to play a little more defensively. Still doing very well on the farm, though. You can see already gotten himself that tier. Track what he decides to buy as he goes back next.
He's got a full inventory. How can he buy anything? It's full.
I imagine he'll sell some stuff. That's one of the other advantages of Kleptomancy, is because you get so much free items, you just keep selling it. And it looks like he is going to go for that early sheen.
He's gone for a full free build as well. Klepto, magical footwear, and the biscuits as well. Just getting as many free things as possible. It's like me when I used to go to like university open days. Yeah? You just get all the pens and all the mugs, bits of pizza, lanyards that you never use again and find in 10 years.
Why would you just take pizza from a university viewer?
Because if they have pizza, I'm going to eat the pizza then.
Fair enough.
Why would you deny pizza? We're not all deviants and cut it with scissors, okay? Some of us like normally cut slices of pizza.
That's fair. I understand that. And Kold, his main focus right now is Raptors. He's not interested in pizza. He wants to try and deny as much farm away from Xerxe as possible. One of the big things about Ivern is he's actually not that great at stopping counter jungling. He doesn't trade effectively during the well, at any point in the game, really, especially against the Rengar. And often you can just walk in and take his camps away, especially if he hasn't been able to put his passive down. So that's what Kold is trying to take advantage of right now, but Xerxe still doing rather well, maintaining in terms of levels, has now hit that level 6 as Kold makes that level 7 mark. Yet to see any kind of first blood action yet.
And what we want to see is Unicorns of Love making those proactive plays. We saw it a little bit. They tried to get up towards the top side, but Splyce have got pretty good vision control in terms of just denying any rotations from Exileh and any roams from Kold as well, especially in this bottom side river, as we see Nisqy now stepping down towards the bottom side, but we'll just back away for the moment. It's about an 800 gold lead for the Unicorns. A lot of that is coming from that mid lane, where once again we see Nisqy falling behind in terms of actual CS. Remember, up next is Fnatic versus H2K. Fnatic, pretty strong performance against Splyce yesterday, whereas H2K very much struggled, some of their rookies perhaps having first day nerves here on the stage. Here's the call of the Forge God. Stopwatch stops time as Kold comes in as well with the On the Hunt, looking for him. Exileh's up here as well, and that should be first blood going over to the Unicorns of Love.
Well executed dive from the Unicorns. Good rotation from Exileh as well. We talked a lot about what the Unicorns comp wants to do, and these are kind of the proactive plays we wanted to see. Getting a kill onto the counter matchup against the Illaoi, definitely going to do a lot of favors for WhiteKnight in this top lane. First kill goes in favor of the Unicorns.
Good stuff from the Unicorns. It's exactly what we wanted to see from them. Splyce trying to answer in the bottom side. They have Daisy. This would be 5 members of the Splyce lineup diving if they went for it, but instead they will just retreat for the time being. With all the summoners up for the Unicorns bot lane, you don't really want to go too aggressive on that.
Yeah, Splyce wanted to try and make something happen down towards the bot side after what happened up in the top lane. Unfortunately, they weren't quite fast enough on the play, which means that Unicorns of Love are the team that walked away with the early kill. So here you can see Zhonya's used early to then flash later on. At this point, Oda thinks I'm fine, but unfortunately he doesn't throw his Q out to get a bit of lifesteal along with the other tentacles, and therefore with the damage from Kold and Exileh, they're able to do enough damage and get themselves that early kill.
And then they go for the Rift Herald as well afterwards. This is what we wanted to see from the Unicorns. Yesterday, too passive, didn't make plays, really struggled because perhaps their draft didn't let them play as the team they wanted to be. Today, a little bit more conventional in the draft, still a few oddballs thrown in there in the form of the Rengar. But now we're starting to see the Unicorns really come alive.
Now the Black Cleaver is done for Odoamne, you should start to see him being a little more aggressive towards WhiteKnight, but he's done a great job of holding his own in what should be a rather difficult matchup for him. Things naturally will get much harder as the game progresses, but we'll keep an eye on how these two hold up against each other. WhiteKnight definitely off to a better start than what he was able to do yesterday.
That's exactly what he'll want. Splyce, on the other hand, seem to be content to scale up. They didn't really get that bot lane play that they wanted, but still, you've now got teleport on Kobbe, so he can teleport back to the lane whenever he wants to. He's ahead in farm. Mid lane's pretty even, although Nisqy struggled a little bit. But we have these late game juggernauts. We have this late game power from Splyce. And at the moment, they seem satisfied to wait for the later portion of this match.
Nisqy taking a lot of damage there from Exileh.
That was strong from Exileh. Didn't expect him to continue with that dive, but doing a great job. Samux forced back as well. Rift held Kold in the mid lane because Totoro is here once again. And having such a safe AD carry just opens up your support to do things like this and help get these towers.
Yeah, and one of the players we were looking at coming into today was Nisqy. And how would he hold up against Exileh? Because you would expect, okay, Nisqy, he struggled against Caps. I can understand it. It makes sense. Caps is a very talented mid laner, and he plays exceptionally well. But against Exileh, who definitely had a bit of a struggling year, perhaps he will be able to do better. But in the matchup that's now reversed, he's losing. So he's now lost as Ryze into the Ryze Azir matchup, and now he's losing early on in the Azir versus Ryze matchup. So things not looking exceptionally bright for Nisqy, especially now that his mid tower is gone. You expect Unicorns to then start prioritizing taking these side lane towers.
You have to remember how much of the map opens up when you take that mid lane tower as well. We talked about it in game 1. It just allows Unicorn free reign across this jungle. Look at how many wards they have scattered across that top side jungle. And Splyce now have to work out a way to clear out that vision and stop this Unicorn advance.
Splyce wanted to try and set up a top lane dive. You can see that Kasing was grouped up with Nisqy, trying to utilize that ultimate, but UOL read the play with all of the great vision that they had towards the top side. Now they're going for another engage onto Odo.
God of the Forge God will connect. There's the brittle as well, and there goes Odo. Goodbye, my son, as the Unicorns of Love get their second kill of the game.
Flash still on cooldown. The engage from WhiteKnight with the follow-up damage from Kold. This is likely going to result in a lot of damage and may even the top lane turret, extending the Unicorns' gold lead even further.
This is strong stuff from the Unicorns. They know what they want to play around. Top lane has been their focus. They've got a couple of kills onto Odo, and they've been able to continually pressure Splyce. Splyce, yes, you know, when we started off this, we talked about how they're good at reacting to their enemies' mistakes. Doesn't look like Unicorns are really making enough mistakes for Splyce to react.
Certainly seems like it, and Splyce, they are the team that, again, they have gone for this scaling composition, so this is very much what we expected from the matchup. UOL wanted to try and make these mid-game plays, and Splyce very much geared more towards the later stages of play, but a lot of focus just going down onto shutting down Odoamne. He did struggle yesterday against Soaz, even dying in the 1 versus 1, and this time a lot of jungle attention is being thrown at him. And while he is maintaining a decent CS lead, he is 0-2.
Not what you want to have when you're in a matchup that you should be dominant in. Of course, WhiteKnight has had a lot of help, so let's not be disingenuous to Odoamne. It's been 1v2, 1v3 a lot of the time.
Certainly has
been very hard to react to, but Splyce haven't done stuff on the other side of the map when Odoamne is being dived. Exileh, so much pressure in this mid lane now as well. Almost gets the second mid tower at the 15-minute mark. Sora steps forward here. The teleport's coming in behind. Odo wants to make something happen. Kobbe on the chase, on the hunt. The heal comes out, but there's the stun, there's the devour, and this will be a kill to Splyce. Kobbe secures it.
Odo not quite able to get an assist, but they should be able to convert this into a tower. Splyce making stuff happen, and now they'll finally be able to get themselves their first objective of the game.
Here we are, first tower of the game for Splyce. It means only a 2,000 gold lead for the Unicorns of Love. Nisqy tried to put a turret behind. He's going to stream a shuffle in. Exileh knocked back. Can he survive through this? Somehow he's still alive, and Exileh gets away. Where are the rest of Splyce? They're not there. Exileh will realm warp to safety. It's great play from the Unicorns of Love mid laner.
Makes the flying V in his Zhonya's to get away. But note how much damage Exileh has been able to get down onto that tier 2 tower in the middle lane. He's been putting so much pressure down, and it is forcing Nisqy to play on the defensive constantly. Let's have a look back here. UOL bot wanted to try and go aggro. They're feeling pretty strong with the Iceborne Gauntlet completed. The TP flank comes in from Odoamne, but it wasn't really needed. They could have won out on the 2 versus 2. Instead, they then used this man advantage to convert it into an early tower. And they started to close the gold gap just a bit, but still 2,000 in the favor of the Unicorns.
Splyce capitalizing on a mistake once again. Unicorns overextended, they go in, Splyce get a kill, and they get a turret for themselves. Now, Next on the agenda seems to be this top side of the map. Both the bot lanes have moved up towards the top. And Samux and Totoro will be able to keep safe for the time being. I'm wondering what Totoro is going to do here, because once again, he seems to be roaming around with Kold a lot more than he's staying in lane with Samux.
His main goal is to gain control with regards to vision. It's better to travel with a buddy, as you know. Much safer to do so, especially if you have to fate check some dangerous brushes. UOL right now seem to have a lot more control over the map, especially towards the top side where the Ezreal is. Now, Totoro are likely going to rejoin him, and Exileh now alone.
Tries to get the blue, but it's stolen away by Nisqy. The Realm Walk comes out as well as Exileh tries to get to safety. Escapes for the moment, but he did not get the blue, and he had to burn his ultimate.
I find it quite funny that the E from Illaoi even followed, it even followed him as well.
You have to travel with a buddy, Betty.
That's very true. Now Splyce grouping up in the middle lane. Let's see how their siege is. The main difference between this... Ooh, engage.
God of the Forge God looking for the connection. Can't quite land onto the Tahm Kench. And the Catfish will scurry his way away.
Now with the Vitality composition that they had, it was the Caitlyn Azir, whereas now with Splyce you have the Sivir Azir. Now, while the wave clear is still very good, the siege is a little weaker, largely because you don't have the traps that you can take advantage of, and the range of a Sivir is that much shorter, which means you have to get a little bit closer to the turret, which is always riskier. So Splyce, they still have a lot of wave clear, but as you saw when they grouped up, UOL with the answer forced Splyce to immediately disengage and back away.
Still CS lead for Exileh in the mid lane. He's about 20 farm up, and that kill, of course, has finished the Abyssal Mask and the Zhonya's Hourglass. Compared to just the Nash's Tooth on Nisqy at the moment, Nisqy will try and scale, but thus far seems to be just slightly behind his lane opponent. Samux is going up towards this blue build, Ezreal, that we've started to see a little bit more. With the Iceborne Gauntlet instead of the Trinity Force, forged a little bit more, sustain a little bit more peel ability.
It's still good damage with the Muramana as well later on into the game. Likely going to grab a Blade of the Brewing King too. Really does have its most strength though in the mid game, along with this Ryze. And just as a reminder, we talked a lot about it earlier on. Splyce's comp really does have a strong late game. You could argue there's a slight issue in terms of their ability to engage, because you're very much relying on the hunt from Azir. Sorry, not Azir, the Sivir. But aside from that, there's no real way to start a fight, and it can be difficult for an Illaoi to really close the gap. As we see another engage bar.
That gap's closed pretty quickly as Odoamne goes down once again. Unicorns of Love behind the turret get themselves their third kill.
0-3-0 for Odoamne now. What was a counter matchup has now become a...
Exileh has got such fancy feet here. He's so brave as well. He knows he's in a 1v3, and still he runs away. Goodbye, he says. A golden realm walk to get to safety.
This was one of his comfort picks in the past. I mean, it's one of his most played too, and you can see what he can do on the champion, especially given how strong it is in the current meta. His LeBlanc didn't quite go the way he wanted yesterday, but now he's got his hands on this Ryze. He is certainly making things difficult for Nisqy and the rest of Splyce.
Splyce, however, still holding on. Look at this once again, because Odoamne just does not know what's coming.
Just not respecting the lack of vision on the bottom side of the map. They didn't even really need the ultimate from WhiteKnight. He just grabbed himself a cheeky assist. And all the damage coming out from Kold. 2-0-1. Also a strong performance from him on the Rengar. Champion we don't typically expect from Kold, formerly known as Trashy, the old Splyce jungler. Now he has that Duskblade of Drakthar completed. You can see where that damage is going to come from.
Can he get onto that backline effectively though? Can he assassinate Kobbe? Kobbe still unkilled this game. He's one of only 5 players in the EU LCS this split to remain unkilled thus far. We've only been through a day and a half worth of action, Betty, so I'm sure we're going to have a lot more kills as the split progresses. Here goes Nisqy. Oh, great flash from Exileh, but straight into the face of Kobbe. Exileh tries to turn it around. There's the Realm Warp, and once again, the fancy. The Exileh is a god this game, Betty.
Constantly getting out of dire situations. So many members of Splyce constantly having to answer the aggression coming out from the mid laner of Unicorns allows them to take objectives elsewhere.
Odo tries to flash, but you can't flash away from the Forge God. Kold was coming in, but the redemption makes them back away for the moment. 5,000 gold lead now for the Unicorns of Love. Exileh performing, WhiteKnight performing, Kold performing. Samux and Totoro have done well as well, but they've kind of been a non-factor in this game. This is the Unicorns of Love that we wanted to see coming into this split.
Yeah, this is much more of what the Unicorns fans wanted. Playing a much cleaner game, especially with the high expectations of Splyce. It does feel like that right now a big weakness for this roster is their mid lane. Constantly falling behind in terms of the 1v1, losing that mid tower very early, and just losing all this control over the map. Unicorns of Love getting themselves some solid early leads. Now the question is, can they close it? Because we saw Giants get these kind of early leads against Vitality. Things looked great for them, but when it came to actually breaking into the base, they were not quite able to do it.
And Divine comes down, knocks Exileh back. It's a 3v1 as Daisy's here to help with the Zhonya's Realm Warp.
At what point does it just get obnoxious?
Well, I think it got obnoxious quite a while ago if you're a Splyce fan, Thaddeus, and Deficio hates that combination as well, so...
Absolutely disgusting. No counterplay. Exileh walks away once again. To be fair, though, he hasn't relied on the Zhonyas every time. He's just been dancing around, avoiding CC, and now look at all these members trying to kill Exileh once again.
Exileh's just going to run down, because the rest of his team is there in the river. They don't mind. They got that mid lane second tier tower, so they're 4 towers to 1 up as well. Next Drake is a mountain, so they'll be looking for that. And WhiteKnight now just thinks he can beat Odoamne in the pure 1v1. Kold's on his way. There comes the leap of faith, but Odoamne has nowhere to go. The Unicorns of Love are stampeding over Illaoi. And now Xerxe has to try and defend his tower.
Every single kill has been put onto Odo, and Splyce have not been able to support him in any way or find any really answers to this mid-game aggression coming out from the Unicorns of Love. Looking exceptionally good for them, playing this 1-3-1 style and slowly getting deeper and deeper into the Splyce half of the map.
The concern always is that Splyce scale up so well. They've got an Ashes Tooth completed on Nisqy. He's building up towards his next item now as well. You've got the Essence Reaver complete and the BF Sword and the Zeal on this Sivir. Late game, Splyce are going to be a problem. Unicorns of Love do need to start breaking more turrets, breaking down these inhibitors as well if they want to close out this game.
But you're seeing the difference between Unicorns and Giants in terms of their proactivity. They're just constantly finding these picks, constantly trying to force these small skirmishes around the map, utilizing the strength of Rengar, which is in those 1v1, 2v2 scenarios where he doesn't have to worry about a big beefy tank protecting the carry that he so desperately wants to get onto. Unicorns, they're playing smart, they're playing patient. They put a lot of pressure on themselves. We saw a couple of tweets from them saying, we expected more from us. We wanted to play better. We wanted to debut a stronger performance. And I think this is much more of the playstyle and the level that they were expecting from themselves.
I think their fans are pretty happy at the moment as well. Samux is going to go back, finish off that Blade of the Ruined King. Exileh has completed his Void Staff as well. So now it seems like Unicorns think he can deal with Odoamne, and then they switch WhiteKnight across to another lane and let Kold be that threat, be that unseen predator throughout the Splyce jungle.
I think they've moved him up towards the top side because it's easier for WhiteKnight to be able to TP flank into an engagement rather than having like your squishy AP mage. So keeping him closer to the Drake, which is what they're looking to play around relatively soon, just makes sense to keep him towards the bottom side of the map. He's going back to base right now. Could swap out that TP for a slightly more aggressive summoner spell if he wants. Instead, it looks like he's going to hold on to it and still going to add a few extra items. No control ward in his inventory, though. Shame on you, Exileh. You really need that amp tone right now.
It's more damage, man.
It's true.
More damage is always good.
But control, vision, information.
They seem to have enough information at the moment because Splyce are pushed so far back.
That's true.
That they can't even step out of the lanes. They're just stuck basically in their base. The Mounted Drake does go across towards the Unicorns of Love. Add that to the Cloud. Got a pretty tasty combination for them, but Splyce is still holding on. Only lost that middle tower out of the second tier of turrets. Unicorns of Love do need to make these proactive plays. They need to step forward, and Splyce are willing just to wait this one out. They still seem composed. They still seem to know what they want to do, and they've started to get a few more wards in their own jungle.
You can see the power of their wave clear right now making things a little difficult. We'll see if the Unicorns will utilize the power of the Ryze ult to make a quick transition from one lane to another. They're currently playing on all 3 lanes and pushing up deep towards Splyce's half of the map. Baron could be a potential, but there's always the risk of Splyce finding a successful fight around that area. And remember, grouping up in the choke point is definitely what Odoamne would love to have for his ultimate, the amount of damage that he has available in his current build.
There's a 2-level advantage for Kold if that smite fight does erupt. But here's the Realm Warp flank that we talked about, the Call of the Forge God as well. They're going for Kasing, then knock up off towards the side. Odoamne, they're going into a choke point here, and Odoamne might use the ult. Kobbe has to flash the wall, as does Odo. Splyce disengage without losing any members, but they do burn a lot of summoners.
Splyce a little bit too split up to really go for the flight. Kasing, though, going in for the flank on the 2 members of Unicorns in mid.
Samux and Totoro not in the best of spots, but Samux with the arcane shift in the flash. Totoro now looking for the stand beside me. Samux step forward towards him. Help out your support, man. He does. Kold with the flank. Exileh there as well. Samux so low, almost takes down. The autos come out, and Kobbe gets the kill. And now Splyce are going to look for this turret. They'll push through the mid lane with the Daisy, with the rest of their squad. They can continue this pressure because Odoamne still has that ultimate. Are the Unicorns of Love going to do much here? Exileh is stopping the wave in its tracks, but Splyce have Daisy, and they are going to get their 3rd turret of the game.
This is the decisiveness that we saw from Splyce against Fnatic yesterday. UOL made a slight mistake in that engagement, in that after they tried to force the fight, they then split up. Samux and Totoro stuck around in the middle lane a little bit too long, while Kold and Exileh were heading towards the Drake. Splyce saw this opportunity and immediately pounced on it to try and force the fight, get themselves a couple of kills, and get themselves 2 quick and easy turns.
And once again, we come back to the question, Betty, is can the Unicorns close out the game? Can they do what Giants failed to do? Or are they going to struggle as Splyce's wave cleave is just too strong? Liandry's complete on Nisqy now as well. Infinity Edge, Static Shiv on Kobbe. You've got a 3-item Sivir that you have to deal with now, who's still got a stopwatch, Vedius, who can still cease time for a moment and keep himself alive in a fight.
And Odo is just continuing to build damage. He's 0, 4, and 1 right now. But in these team fights, he will still be a big factor. If UOL group up, the amount of damage that he can throw out is monstrous, and WhiteKnight still has to show a lot of respect towards him in the side lane, because he does have a lot of kill potential, assuming that he knows where the enemy jungler is, of course.
Once again, Unicorns of Love pushing in the lanes. Splyce trying to rectify this situation by pushing back themselves, but Kasing and Xerxe will realize they can't really deal with this. Glacial Fissure doesn't connect. The Call of the Forge God is going to come in, knocks up 3. There's the redemption as well. Unicorns of Love goes so aggressive, but so much damage comes out from Odo, and immediately Splyce can turn this one around. He's on the chase. He cannot quite make that final connection, but he's not done yet. WhiteKnight has to try and get away because Kasing has come in with an Abyssal Voyage, and WhiteKnight might be going to meet his maker. He's going to a river with some concrete shoes. WhiteKnight is dead, and Splyce pick up 2.
And this is exactly what we were talking about with regards to Odo. You cannot afford to underestimate his damage. Splyce were grouped up as a 5-man unit. UOL tried to force the engage. They couldn't catch any members out, and Splyce are able to get the turnaround. We talked about scaling. We talked about could Unicorns of Love close out the game, but now Splyce are on the Baron, and Unicorns are in a dire situation.
Baron down to 4,000. Kold looking for it. Has the flash. He's going to jump in. He seals it! Say hello, Unicorns! Kold gets the steal, and Unicorns are right back in this game.
Our 2nd steal of the European LCS, first with Maxlaw and now with Kold. He goes to the flash, he uses the brush from Xerxe to get the leap, and is able to steal that away. You mentioned the level differential earlier on Medic, and now we saw it come into fruition as Unicorns secure themselves the Baron.
Great stuff from Kold. That's why you bring in a man like Kold. That's why you have him as a future leader for your team, because he does things like that. That's exactly what Unicorns of Love needed, as they had lost out in the last couple of fights to Splyce. Let's have another look at this, Vedius.
So you can see the brush that Xerxe is using there. Kold jumps into it, gets the leap, the smite. More than enough damage to be able to steal that one away. He sacrifices his life, but the gains are so valuable, because if Splyce had secured this objective, it would have meant so much in terms of stalling, buying time, getting closer to that late game point where they will outscale this Unicorns draft. But by having it now, Unicorns have the potential to set up for the siege once again, try and break into the base of Splyce, and use the advantage that they still have before Splyce go full late game.
It was so close as well. I just looked at the numbers. Baron had 750 HP. Xerxe Smite did 760. So if he had smoked at the exact moment, Kold wouldn't have been able to steal that away. Great stuff from the Unicorns of Love, though, to keep themselves in this game. Now, maybe they'll be slightly more tentative. Maybe they'll realize they can't take every single fight because the last couple have not gone in their favor. But Exileh is level 18 on this Ryze, and he has performed admirably thus far this game. Can he continue to be a stalwart for the Unicorns of Love?
4 members sent up top from Splyce just to try and deal with Exileh. Has left this mid lane exposed, but wait for Sivir. This is the power that she does have, and this is the same sort of struggle that Giants were in early on in the day against Vitality. Now we see Exileh keeping 2 members up in the top side. Odoamne now finally hitting level 16, his ultimate now at max rank. Definitely a scary situation for the Unicorns to be in if they find themselves in a full 5v5 and a small choke point for all those tentacles to hit all those members.
And we're getting to that point that we talked about all the way from picks and bans. Splyce are at these 3 or 4 item hyper carry, late game carries. Sivir's there with the Essence Reaver, the Infinity Edge, the Lord Dominic's Regards and the Static Shiv. Nisqy's on his way, Liandry's Void Staff just completed as well. And then you have the protection from Xerxe with the Locket of the Iron Solari, with the Base of the Mountain, with the Redemption. You've got so much protection for your carries that I think Unicorns of Love are going to struggle to break through to this base. They're looking down towards the bottom side, but Odoamne had already abandoned it. There was no minion wave there, so they don't really get any more damage down on towards that tower.
Unicorns still hold on to a healthy gold lead, but as we've seen when playing against an Azir especially, the gold can mean very little if he has 3 to 4 items and is still able to have a big damage impact. 3 to 5 tower advantage favor going towards the Unicorns. A couple of extra items have been completed, especially that Samux Ezreal. You can see 4 items now done for him, but a 4-item Sivir as well. You're thinking, in these big team fights, that Sivir is going to hurt.
Ricochet does a lot of work when you get to these later game team fights. Second Cloud Drake of the game for the Unicorns of Love to add that to the mountain. And it's Elder Drake up next. Perhaps that's their win condition. Perhaps they get that and they look for a fight. Perhaps they're waiting for the next Baron, because at the moment they just can't quite crack away into the Splyce base.
As of right now, not quite able to do it. The Baron has worn off. 3 Drakes have gone in the favor of the Unicorns. Elder could be another potential win condition. They do have a big level advantage over the Splyce lineup, largely coming from the big CS leads that they've been able to build for themselves. You know, we've seen a lot of Ryzes with impressive farm. Exileh, no difference. 414 now at 34 minutes into the game.
I mean, the Flame Horizon from Kold over Xerxe is pretty impressive as well,
too,
of course.
Xerxe, of course, playing the Ivern doesn't quite have the same jungle clear. Well, I mean, never mind. That's a silly statement.
Doesn't quite get as many CS
That's
usually
what I meant.
throughout
Thank
the
you,
game.
Medic.
The numbers don't add up in Ivern's favor most of the time. He doesn't even need it because you build such cheap items on Ivern a lot of the time.
He is going for Locket and Redemption. Also gotten himself the Base of the Mountain. That additional shielding too.
Whenever anyone says Face of the Mountain, all I can think of is like Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit.
I think of Mount Rushmore.
Of the mountain.
I think of Mount Rushmore.
Oh, so that's probably more dignified than mine. I'm much more into my
Mine's just more literal.
Fantasy world.
I'm expecting presidents to show up when you shield someone.
Just try to imagine how that would exactly work. Just like one of their faces imposed on the person that you steal it from. But Unicorns of Love are trying to steal a turret down here in the bottom lane. Odoamne is not going to get stunned up by the concussive blows. Great damage onto Kobbe though. And the Unicorns of Love with a 5-man stack did get some damage down on towards the tower. Unable to break it down just quite yet, but the deconstruction has begun. As Splyce have to retreat. Kobbe and Odoamne. Well, Odoamne is the one that's gone back. Kobbe's gone towards the mid lane to try and clear things up.
But look at top from Splyce. They do have a big minion wave pushing, along with mid, having no priority there from the Unicorns of Love. Does mean that Splyce can just send multiple members to wave clear and keep their tower alive. Game continues to go later and later. The scaling is getting stronger, and you can just see the difference in damage. While Nisqy has struggled this game, you can see how he's kept up in terms of damage with Exileh. And that's just going to get even stronger as the game progresses. And Splyce, they're fine. I noticed this earlier. Kobbe, Sivir seem to be doing river dancing as they walk around the map. Exhaust on Kold.
Has to flash away as well. Kasing used the exhaust, the flash, and the abyssal void to try and get there. Kobbe only had to use his ultimate and the flash, so technically a summonless seller advantage.
He's river dancing. Look at Kobbe. It's fascinating. I'm not sure why they do it.
I feel like you want to join in more than anything else, Vedius.
I'd love to river dance. Wonderful kind of dancing.
The first time I ever saw a river dance,
it
was a concert hall. I was sitting near the back, I was quite short, and I couldn't see the feet. So I was just looking at the heads of people and just like, this isn't
bobbing
impressive. Just people doing this the entire time. Their heads just bouncing up and down. Not impressive at all. You can't see the feet.
That's very true. The sound must have been good though.
Yes, lots of tapping.
How are they doing this? Wow, just with the bobbing of their heads.
Unicorns of Love seems to be setting up vision around the Baron for the time being. It's 37 minutes in, Vedius. They have a 6,000 gold lead and those 3 dragons under their belt.
And the battle for vision begins, the classic Baron dance. Splyce are more than happy to take a fight at this point in the game. Well, I'm sure Nisqy would love to have his death cap completed. He still has more than enough damage to have an impact in these later game fights. Exileh is full build, so on the bright side for Splyce, he can't do any more damage than he currently does.
In the last few fights, he hasn't actually seemed to be impacting it that much. We talked about how Ryze falls off as you get later into the game. He's drawing a lot of pressure. He's not really killing anyone. He's only got 1 kill through the entire game.
It can often be difficult given his fairly short range to really get onto the backline threats, and with an Illaoi in front of his face, it could be even harder for him, so he's just got to smash through the front line and see how far he can get. He is sitting off on a side lane right now. He will be able to get a decent amount of turret damage, but keep an eye on Kasing's ulti. Can they get the collapse?
As the Abyssal Voyage, instead he's just going to run towards it. Exileh, this is the time you need to get those dancing shoes on. Or not, because you can just do that. Exileh gets away, draws pressure towards him, and the Baron has been started by the Unicorns of Love. Splyce trying to react to it. Xerxe has the root caller. He is 3 levels down, though, and the Unicorns of Love are going to disengage this one. Inside, they don't want it just quite yet. They clear out Daisy. The Unicorns of Love do bring pressure back towards that Baron.
But Splyce have mid-priority, and they've got the bot lane pushing in their favor. Top should start to push as well. Exileh moving back towards top lane. Remember, he doesn't have the teleport, and Splyce are grouping up mid.
Going to put down Shurima's legacy as well as that turret forms itself. Splyce trying to get here with the Call of the Forge God. The Unbreakable comes out as well to stop the damage in, and there's Odoamne as well. Has the leap of faith. Is he going to use it? No. Spirit Vessel back onto Totoro. Gets forced back as well, but still Exileh is in the top lane here, guys. You see it in your picture-in-picture. He gets a turret down, and he's looking for the inhibitor as well. Splyce with 4 members are going to push forward here, and the Unicorns of Love might have to sacrifice at least the tower. Splyce not done yet. There's the inhibitor fallen in that top lane. Unicorns of Love need to force them back, because otherwise it's just an even trade. The Glacial Fisher, the knock-up onto Kasing. He's going to get taken low here by the Unicorns of Love, but Splyce have turned this one back around. Odoamne still fighting Exileh in the base of Splyce. Here comes the engagement Kold from the side, on the hunt. The jump out from Nisqy, and Splyce will disengage, but Exileh's on the Nexus tower. Splyce, what are you doing? You're losing your base because Exileh is just doing work throughout it all now. Splyce might look for the re-engage on towards Kold. Xerxe flashes in. WhiteKnight's off towards the side. Another Call of the Forge Goddess once again. They pray to their lucky stars and they've called out Kobbe. Exileh's coming back. Splyce in a 4v5 still. Odoamne in the base. Splyce turning it back around on towards WhiteKnight. And WhiteKnight just about surviving for the time being. Has to flash and get away. And Splyce survive the fight. They get an inhibitor, but they do lose top inhib as well.
Nobody dies in that extended exchange between Splyce and the Unicorns of Love. Top inhib goes down in the favor of the Unicorns. Mid inhib goes down in the favor of Splyce. But now Splyce have their eyes on the Baron. Unicorns of Love are on their way to match it.
A little bit too late, perhaps. Exileh has the Realm Warp if they want to join it up. 4,000, 3,000 Kold's going in. Doesn't steal it. And Splyce have secured it. But now the Unicorns of Love are going to try and get this ball rolling as they jump on towards this Splyce lineup. So many members down to half HP. Exileh flashes in. He's looking for this. The Call of the Forge got the Realm Warp out. The knock up onto 2. Splyce have to run for the wings because the Unicorns of Love are not done yet. Samux in that front line. It's actually just the Spirit Vessel, and the Unicorns don't get anything once again. Xerxe will eventually get devoured and get out. And somehow Splyce get the Baron and get out scot-free.
How is nobody dying?
I don't know, Vedius.
Oh, but this is so good for Splyce, finally walking away with the Baron. You see how much damage they're able to exert in these late game fights, but Unicorns, they're still fighting extremely well, being very patient, not hard committing. I thought Exileh flashing in could have been their downfall, but here's Odoamne. He has his own.
He's got ult and flash. He can sense it. He can feel it. He's going to get some damage down on towards Exileh. Flashes in for him as well. Here comes the damage on the Elder Dragon. It goes. Unicorns of Love get it, and Odo's dead. And now the Unicorns of Love can bring down the Call of the Forge Goddess to try and knock back Splyce. Kold will fall, but the Unicorns of Love get out. They lose a man, but they get the Elder Dragon.
Odo traded for Kold. Kold did his job though, secured that objective for his team. And Unicorns, they don't walk away with nothing. What a tense set of exchanges between these two rosters. These late game fights so close.
Who came out on top in that trade, Betty? It went on for so long. It's so hard to call because it was Inhib for Inhib in the end, and then Baron for Elder Drake. I
mean, you would imagine that Splyce, given the comp that they have, would be the ones that came out on top because now sieging becomes a little bit easier. But let's take a look back at this fight. Odo, his focus was just on killing Exileh rather than jumping into the fray. Look at how long it takes him before he uses his ulti. Right, he doesn't even throw it out. Exileh's able to walk away thanks to the help from WhiteKnight, and rather than committing to the pit and helping his team secure the dragon, his eyes were set on trying to get down that carry, because I suppose if Exileh's dead, then one of the big pain points for Splyce in this split-pushing Ryze is taken out of the equation, and then taking the rest of the base becomes another matter.
There's been so much action in the last few minutes. I'm surprised the scoreline still reads 5-6. Kobbe still unkilled, of course, one of 5 players in the EU LCS to maintain that record. And now he has a 6-item Sivir, going for the death stance instead of boots. This is the point that we've talked about so much, Vedius. This is the point where Splyce are truly online. You've got full carries on either side. You've got the Ardent Sensor on the Ivern. You've got a Knight's Vow on Kasing to keep your carries alive. And this is where we expect to see Splyce being able to hold on just that little bit. Unicorns of Love need to find a little bit of magic if they're to be able to win this game.
This is actually one of the rare occasions where we've gotten so late into the game. You see the Ornn, oh, hang on.
Gage onto Odo, there's redemption as well. He pops up the Leap of Faith, and look at the damage that's going to come up. Double knockup, Odo's devoured, and Kasing will get him out. Exileh actually gets the kill, and now Exile's trying to run up towards the top side. He will be able to escape as well, and Unicorns of Love find their little bit of magic. They found their fancy feet, and they found themselves a kill.
Odoamne going down means a lot for the Unicorns of Love. They now have a numbers advantage. Elder Drake means that they're going to be doing a decent amount of damage, and now they're setting up for the siege on the mid-tier 3.
Daisy's there as well, so it ends up being a 5v5 once again, and Unicorns just can't quite crack into that base. They don't really have tower shredders, they don't really have objective takers. Ezreal and Ryze aren't really known for their ability to siege incredibly effectively and take down towers incredibly quickly. Got a bit of poke, of course, with the Ezreal, and they will be able to take a tower in the bottom lane. 7,000 gold lead for the Unicorns of Love as we enter the 45th minute of this game. They're looking for the mid-tower as well. Call of the Forge God. Knockup is going to connect onto 3 members of Splyce. WhiteKnight's been on point with those this game. The Ram has been hitting home, and they will take down the... Not quite the inhibitor tower.
He plays so far forward, so dangerously. He was right in front of the entire lineup of Splyce just to try and kill out Nisqy. He comes very close, but then immediately has to disengage.
Tower does go down.
Does end up going down. Unicorns playing these late game fights very well, but Odo, his 6th death of the game. He has all of the deaths for Splyce. To be fair, Unicorns have invested a lot of resources into him, but the fact that he died in front of that turret, you have to question the decision-making, the setup there. How did that situation end up arising?
I mean, how many times do you have to die before you go on turret? Let's be honest.
Wow.
Like, after 4 or 5 deaths in lane, I'd be pretty frustrated with the way the game was going.
You would imagine that as an experienced player, a very experienced player, especially given that he has been to Worlds and has that kind of prestige surrounding him, he is considered one of the best top laners in Europe. Those kind of mistakes cannot happen this late into the game. Now level 18, will be dealing a lot of damage, now getting a couple more tanky stats under his belt. But yeah, just to go back to something that we didn't get to touch on, look at some of the upgraded items that you have now on the Unicorns of Love. Ornn's passive allows you to get these additional extra items that cost a bit of gold but do enhance these items and are only really valuable in the late stages of the game. But you spend just a couple extra, like 1,000 gold around that area, and you have an improved death cap. You have an improved Locket of the Iron Solari, and these can make the difference, or at least give you a slight advantage in the late game.
Yeah, usually just small upgrades to the items as well. Probably just about cost effective, but it does give you, if you're getting to that 6-item site, is that little bit of extra bonus that you do get. As you say, the Rabadon's Death Crown has been completed on Exileh, and you've got the Circlet of the Iron Solari on towards Totoro. I would pretend that I knew those names off by heart, but I just looked them up on Google.
Samux, just sold his Iceborne and has decided to buy the upgraded Trinity Force.
Any idea what it's called, Vedius?
I want to call the Super Trinity Force.
Trinity Fusion.
Ah.
Some people took a long time to come up with that name, so I'm going to use it.
That's fair. That's very fair. So all these upgraded items now are going to add an extra bit of value. But again, you still look at this Splyce comp and you think, oh, their late game damage is terrifying. But the big issue we've seen for them is their inability to really force these successful fights. Their lack of engage is starting to hurt them. They're always relying on unicorns to start the fight, to then turn it around, use this Tahm Kench flank, maybe get an Odoamne flank. But aside from that, things have been challenging for the Splyce roster to find these successful engages.
Was a concern we had probably about the 20-minute mark. We were talking about whether unicorns would be able to close out the game. And although they played incredibly well, and although Exile's almost 150 farm ahead of Nisqy, and although they dominated the early game, Unicorns of Love are struggling to close this one out. 2 open inhibitors that they can try and take down. They have an open mid of their own. Baron is about to spawn as well. 3 seconds on that, as you can see. And they have vision around it. They've got good red side vision if they want to try and catch out Splyce. But once again, we see Exile going into a side lane. Here comes the engage from Splyce. On the hunt pop, they're just looking for the inhibitor here. They don't really need much more. Unicorns of Love have been scattered. Exile's going for an inhibitor of his own, but Splyce should be able to back away here. They get the inhibitor. Kold still has a flank off Odoamne. Will be able to get back to base as well.
Can they get the collapse?
Exile get it.
Tahm Kench ultimate as well. Cut to over there in a second. Odo doesn't want a hard commit just yet. Exile going for the next inhibitor.
He's got Realm Warp and Zhonya, so he's being
on the Baron.
A little bit spicy once again, trying to damage Odo, dodging out the Tentacles match. Exile is on form today as he closes onto Odoamne, doing some more damage. Here's Kasing as well. Baron started, Splyce trying to react. Xerxe looking for the steal. He pops Daisy into the pit to see if he can get a little bit of vision. Nisqy off towards the side as well, going to do a lot of damage here. Here's the call of the Forge God. The knockup hits onto him, but the smite comes down, and Xerxe is a god as he steals it away. And now Splyce looking for a bit of a fight as they chase on towards Samux. He'll jump the wall. There's a blast cone there as well. WhiteKnight realizes he needs to flash, and Exile is still off in a separate lane, but Splyce able to steal away the Baron.
The decision-making from Unicorns was good. Have Exile draw pressure away from the main roster to split up the Splyce team and then force the Baron, rush it down. The only thing that could have gone wrong was a smite steal from Xerxe, and he returns the favor to Kold. He lost the Baron earlier, he secures it this time round. Now Splyce are the ones with the Baron buff, but can they end the game? Because this is getting so late and neither team has shown any real control. So let's see. Flash here, the knockup is good, but a bit of burst damage, maybe even an early smite there coming out from Kold, allows Xerxe to get the steal, and then the TPN from Odo, along with Kasing arriving as well, allows them to chase off Unicorns. No one dies though, 6-6 in kills, the gold does not matter anymore. And here we are, full late game, Splyce with the Baron.
Say full late game, this is the longest game we've had thus far in the EU LCS, this split.
Not an hour and 30 minutes, but...
Don't say that. Please don't put that bad juju on me. Obviously, the Jin Air SKT game lasted quite long early on. 1,400 CS on a Sivir in that game. It was Teddy doing an incredible job. Don't quite think we're going to hit those numbers yet, but here are some numbers that we are hitting. Good damage from Exile across the board, but as you can see, Nisqy is answering that. Now, Splyce grouped up as 5-man down in the bottom lane, and Exile is nowhere near this. They get the inhibitor tower. They're looking for an inhibitor as well. Here is Exile. He joins the fight. Daisy goes in. Samux being caught, but he's going to jump away. The call of the Forge God on towards Splyce. How many knockups is it? It's a couple as they look for the fight. Unicorns of Love on the front foot, but Totoro has to back away from that spirit vessel. And the Unicorns just can't quite find the fight. Kold has used the thrill of the hunt. He's looking for a flank. He's looking for Kobbe. But Splyce still able just to disengage and re-engage the fight at their leisure.
Splyce hanging around for quite a while. You have to remember that up in the top lane, super minions are making their way into the base of Splyce, and there is a TP on WhiteKnight. Exile also has the option to change his summoner spells and could join him. Splyce, they have to make a decision. Do they keep continuing for the Nexus, or do they go back to base?
They want Exile. They're chasing him up towards the top of this, but he still has the Realm Warp and the Zhonyas, so Splyce will just retreat back. Their wave was cleared out, it looks like, around their Nexus towers.
Oh, but the problem is, Splyce don't actually have minions coming into the lanes anymore, at least in the middle lane, because they're all grouping up to deal with the super minions that are underneath the turret. So Splyce can't continue this siege. they have limited options, but they are sticking around because they want to get this Elder Drake.
Exileh just wants to force out this lane because the Elder Drake is up in 5 seconds. If the Unicorns of Love can sneak this one away, they've got 3 Drakes to go alongside it. That is a great position for them. But Exileh looking for the inhibitor instead. Expect to see a Realm Warp combo if he gets caught out here. Nisqy's going to get a bit of damage down the Arcane Comet as well. There's the Realm Warp. There's the Zhonya's. And there he goes. A golden trip away, but Kasing is not going to let him escape yet. Totoro with a good Winter Spike will slow up the Tahm Kench. Kobbe is just doing the Elder Drake here, and I don't think the Unicorns have realized this is great stuff from Splyce as they get the Elder Drake and the Baron at the same time. But the Unicorns are looking to close this one out. Splyce will be able to back away, and Exileh is going to realize that pretty soon and have to just decide against trying to 1v5.
So the game is still not over, Medic.
Thanks. I was expecting to see like a victory screen or a defeat screen.
I just wanted to
But now that you have informed me, Vedius.
It's important that you're aware of the current state of the game. It's surprisingly even.
It's incredibly even. After the start from the Unicorns, where they had that advantage, we thought maybe they'd be able to close it out, but they struggled to get into the base of Splyce.
Yeah, I mean, they suffered from very similar issues to what Vitality struggled, or Giant struggled from earlier on, which is that the enemy team had a lot of wave clear. They couldn't find a successful pick. Splyce defended pretty effectively, and they punished the small mistakes the Unicorns of Love made around the mid-game area. Now, Splyce, the problem for them is, as we've already talked about, there's no real way for them to start a fight. They're entirely relying on Kobbe, and Unicorns of Love are very effective at disengaging. So they're hoping to find a pick, and so far they have really struggled to kill Exileh thanks to his combo that is constantly taking him to safety.
But a lot of the time, Exileh isn't with the team, and they're losing towers because of it. They can't defend effectively in these 4v5s. Exileh's looking to steal an inhibitor away again, but now he realizes he needs to get back because that tower is gone, and this will be the 3rd inhibitor taken for Splyce. Mid lane has respawned, so they'll look to go across towards that one now, but the Unicorns of Love are still in a 4v5. Eventually, Exileh is here, and now perhaps the Unicorns will go for something, but they don't really have the engage they want either. So Splyce will be able to get this inhibitor, take down all 3 in a go, and now the Unicorns of Love are very much stuck within their base.
Oh yes, they are. Splyce, now the question is, can they close things out? Odoamne was still waiting for his big unload of damage. They're going for the Nexus towers.
Thrill of the Hunt was used as well by Kold as he continues to look for this flank, but he hasn't been effective. When Splyce have started to group up, it's a good way to counteract a Rengar, especially with the Tahm Kench and the Azir and the Illaoi there to put out so much damage if Kold does jump in. Here we go, Call of the Forge God, looking for the knockup. They get one. Exileh jumps forward, Kasing with the Devour and on the hunt. Used by Kobbe to try and get himself away. And once again, the teams just dance back and forth. It's an ebb, it's a flow. At the moment, the flow seems to be going in favor, but WhiteKnight with the flash engage, and Kasing has been caught. Odoamne puts up the leap of faith as he tries to get some damage down, and Splyce still all alive. WhiteKnight's down to half. Exileh's chunked out down towards the bottom side as well. Kobbe opening up on towards these Nexus towers. He'll put some DPS down onto them, but still cannot destroy them. And once again, no one dies, Vedius.
There just doesn't seem to be enough crowd control on Splyce. Every time they get a target low, Unicorns are just able to quickly disengage, and at the same time, the Tahm Kench from Splyce. Every time UOL get onto a target, he saves it. Now, here's another engage.
Nisqy and Kasing are out of position. WhiteKnight missed it. He didn't connect with the Call of the Forge God, and now the Unicorns of Love will realize they cannot do too much more there. That was a misclick.
But look at the super minions in the base of the Unicorns of Love. Splyce, they're just waiting for the Baron to spawn in 25 seconds. This will be the 4th Baron of the game.
Exileh is on 702 farm as well. I just want to bring attention to that. Almost, well, 250 ahead of his lane opponent. You've almost got 700 on Kobbe as well, which is very much expected on a Sivir as you get this late on into the game. But with the Baron...
Infinity Edge done on Kold as well.
Oh, baby. That's not an Infinity Edge. It's a Molten Edge.
Oh, my apologies.
When it has the little red lines around it, makes it molten. Makes it spicy. It's like the fires of Mount Mordor. Just burning. It's Mount Doom in Mordor. I know. I'm a Lord of the Rings now. Anyway, Splyce going to go for the Baron here, and there's no reaction at all from the Unicorns of Love. This should be an easy enough Baron for them. True Shot Barrage is going to come out. That's not going to take it away. Splyce, get the Baron. Tick over to 1,000 gold in the game.
This surely must be it. 3 inhibitors are down. Splyce should have the better late game comp in terms of damage. There's 3 lanes pushing, or 2, sorry. Just realized the bot lane inhibitor has respawned. Look at Kold, waiting for a flank. Maybe if he can just one-shot a single target. There's actually no Zhonya's on top of Nisqy. He's entirely relying on the defensive Kasing. Here we go.
Ball of the Forge God. Here comes the knockup. There's Kold off towards the side as well. Redemption, WhiteKnight joins the fray. Onto Nisqy, double knockup. Totoro there as well. And Unicorns are gonna do it. They get the womboist of combos. They take down 3. And Odoamne was nowhere to be seen in that fight.
Kasing, he was unable to eat Nisqy. The flash is still up, the cleanse is still up. He actually tried to save Odoamne by mistake. Now Odoamne in a 1v3.
Get some damage down onto Kold, jumping onto Samux as well. A lot of healing, of course, but Totoro's just waiting for those concussive blows to come back up. Kold still has the GA. So you can see Young Buck saying, when Azir and Sivir are in a losing team, we should have a halftime break of 40 minutes. So I didn't read it before I read it, and so I found it so funny that it interrupted me reading it. I'm gonna try that again. Young Buck says, after Odoamne's fought off with Kold, Totoro here as well, Exileh and Samux on the flank. Odoamne just trying to do what he can, but eventually he will fall and Kold gets the kill.
But look at the death timers now on Splyce. Only 20 seconds left. UOL can definitely gain a lot of things from this, but Splyce should respawn in time to continue the defense of their base.
So Young Buck's very funny tweet said, if it's an Azir and a Sivir on a losing team, we should have a break at halftime, about 45 minutes or so, to give ourselves a breather. I agree with him. 3 inhibitors are going to go down for the Unicorns of Love as they are trying to close this one out. But Azir is back, Kasing is back. They're going to troll. They just get away after the inhibitor goes down. And once again, Exileh strutting his stuff. 3-0-4 on this Ryze. It's been one of the carries this game for the Unicorns of Love.
Oh, they're going after Kold. They'll see if they'll try and catch him out, but Invisible Knife Cat is able to run away.
Invisible Knife Cat.
But
with a molten edge.
It's true. Now,
his Infinity Edge is over 1,000 degrees. Can cut through butter like a knife.
I'm sure it can. Maybe even steel beam. So let's have a look at this engage from Kold. His guys are on Nisqy. No Zhonya's here. Keep your eyes on Kasing, right? He wants to gobble up Nisqy, ends up grabbing Xerxe instead. Not the target you want to be saving, but Kobbe ends up dying on the backline too because Kasing can't keep both of them alive. Great engage there from Unicorns of Love. They get 3 inhibs, but they can't quite end the game.
Nisqy does 0 damage. Odoamne did 0 damage. Look at the DPS numbers. Kold had such a good flank in that fight as well. Next dragon is the Elder. We might see another one taken down this game. It would be our 3rd, because Splyce do still have wave clear here. But yes, you've got 3 inhibitors down. Yes, you've got double super minions pushing in. But you've only got 1 Nexus tower, and so the Unicorns of Love will be a bit tentative as to how far they can push out.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've only just joined us, we're about 2/3 of the way through this game. Splyce have successfully stalled out against the Unicorns of Love, who did have a fantastic early game lead, but just similarly to what we saw earlier in the day between Giants and Vitality, Unicorns failed to break into the base of Splyce and really capitalize on the lead they had. But Exileh, consistently throughout this game, has been drawing split push pressure. And even when Splyce have had a couple of favorable fights and have gone to those big item spikes, they haven't been able to successfully find those confident engages due to the pressure that Exileh's had drawn on the side lane, but also the limited amount of engage in their composition. So now we're at a point in the game where we're just waiting for one misstep from either team. We've seen that fantastic late game fight from the Unicorns of Love, but now that Splyce are forced into their base, it's going to be harder for Unicorns to find that. And I can't imagine Kasing going to make the similar kind of mistake that he made in the last exchange. Also, Nisqy should buy Zhonya's.
Yes, he should. Yes, he should, Vedius. Banner of Command has been finished on Kasing here to try and help push out the side lanes. Yet to see any ZZ rots, but I'm sure at some point soon we will start seeing them picked up. Splyce going to be able to defend around these inhibitors for the moment. And with no big objectives on the map, Splyce don't really mind if they're pinged back to their base, because they know they can try and push out and fight for that next major objective, which will be the Elder Dragon in just 1 minute and 20 seconds. As Vedius says, in about 45 minutes or so when this game is complete, Fnatic will play up against H2K. Fnatic continuing to look like the strongest team in the EU LCS at the moment, whereas H2K yesterday just seemed a little bit nervous. Some of their rookies not having the best performance for their first time on the stage.
Oh man, getting very tense. Constant back and forth. Really looking forward to the next fight. As a player, you can really feel the tension when you've been playing this long in the game. You know that one misstep could cost your team the entirety. Just like I'm sure we saw earlier in the day. Don't want to give any spoilers away, but just a small bad decision, and you've got to be feeling the fatigue now. You've been sitting under the lights. You've been playing a back and forth game for such a long time. That pressure starts to mount. Is this the best decision? Is this the correct move? And when you think about how both these teams are actually pretty new rosters, that late game decision making, that one call, it's pretty impressive from both these teams.
You have to give credit to whoever's shot calling for both these teams as well. Like, they are doing an incredible job of calling at the right moment, saying when we can be aggressive, when we need to step back. Both teams have been pinned back to just their Nexus towers in the game, and both are still able to make composed decisions. Elder Drake is going to be given to the Unicorns of Love by Splyce. They're not going to fight this one in the same way that the Unicorns didn't fight that last Baron, and you have to think that the Unicorns of Love they'll be raring up for a fight now. This is what they want. They've got the Elder Drake. They've got 3 Drakes underneath their belts as well, so that's buffed up even more. If they can find a fight now, feels like the opportune moment. We have our first Ezreal built, by the way. I assume it was Odoamne, but it could have been... Actually, it was probably Kobbe, who just had one and then sold it.
Bought it, placed it, sold it. So
that's 2.
Now.
That's 2, yeah.
One inhib has respawned, but the Elder Drake, as you rightly mentioned, is on the Unicorns of Love. Baron spawning in about 8 seconds time, and given that the inhibitors have respawned, Splyce might look to try and contest this. But against an Elder Dragon, there's always that risk. It adds so much additional damage late into the game.
It's not just that, it's the fact that everyone has an upgraded Ornn item as well. You've got these extra stats that Splyce just don't have access to. It's one of the few times in the game that you just can't build the item that your opponent has.
Oh, also, Kobbe died. Ruins your stat.
Oh, yes. Okay, I thought you meant just now, and I was wondering how on earth I'd missed that. Yes, Kobbe no longer unkilled in the EU LCS. That's a shame for
Continuing
him.
to river dance down the middle lane. And here we go. Baron has been started.
Daisy's going to know it's going on, as is Xerxe.
Can't even get close, though. They don't want to risk it. They have accepted this is not worth the fight. Let's go and defend our base. And this might be a better situation for Splyce, because if it is Unicorns engaging onto Splyce as a grouped up 5-man unit, perhaps then they can find the successful engage.
I just want to say, the last time someone took a Baron in this game, it was Splyce. And you said, this has to be the end.
Surely.
This has to be the end, Medic. Splyce has to win right now.
You'd imagine so.
Is it the same now? They've got Elder Drake as well.
Unicorns will end the game now. It will happen. Here it comes.
How long is now? Can I just...
Within the next
Within the
30
millennia.
minutes.
Within the next 30 minutes. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing even more action. Let's have a quick look just to make sure we haven't missed any changes in items. I can't see anything obvious as a ZZ Rot on Kasing. Full item build on Nisqy. Still no Zhonya's for him, though. And Splyce will just continue to try and defend their 3 inhibitors. No super minions for either team, but the Unicorns of Love are trying to correct that.
So I've got to throw in a very quick stat. The longest game in the EU LCS was Roccat versus Origin at 80 minutes and 28 seconds. We are currently 16 minutes away from that time. Splyce, at the very least, they have the potential to set a new record alongside the Unicorns of Love, as their 3rd and final inhibitor is about to drop.
Looking for it. Splyce might go for an engage here. The On the Hunt was used. They're going to try and jump onto Samux, but a good Glacial Fissure to disengage, and the Unicorns of Love able to get out scot-free. Exileh was pushing up towards the top side as well, which meant Nisqy had to be there to deal with him. Exileh has been such a pain in the neck of Splyce this game. Such an annoyance most of the time.
Oh my word, look at Kold's HP. Yeah. That just disappeared from a single test of faith.
And at the moment, you feel it's in Unicorn's favour.
But they back away. They have to back away, and that Baron could run out by the time that they get back there. You can see in the top right, 1:30 left on the buff.
This is where Defender's advantage really comes into play as well,
exactly.
isn't it, Vadius?
And people can't get any stronger. They'll buy pots, they'll buy ZZ Rots to help with the wave clear, but you're not getting any stronger than you currently are. It's all about how you play the fights, who miss positions.
Who sells boots at this point as well? Because we've seen both AD carries get rid of all of their boots, yes? But as a mid laner, do you still need Ionian cooldown boots? Do you still need Sorcerer's Shoes, or is it better to have another item instead of that?
I mean, personally, as a mid laner, I would find it rather hard to lose that kind of level of movement speed late into the game. The magic penetration might not have that much value, given that it is flat. but I can see a lot of value in terms of the cooldown reduction. So I'd be quite hesitant to sell the boots as a mid laner, but on an AD carry, when you're mostly just kind of standing there and throwing out damage to the target that's closest to you, it makes a little bit more sense. So I think it'll vary. Perhaps they will have a different perspective. We'll have to keep track.
Totoro has sold his boots as well, instead going for a 6-item support build, not something we commonly see. Here's Kold, he goes on the hunt as he looks for Kobbe. Call of the Forge God coming out as the Nexus towers are dive. Exileh's going to take a bit of damage from that test of Spear, but WhiteKnight's in the midst of them all. Double redemption, Splyce don't really seem to have taken any damage, and WhiteKnight's taken a lot. Somehow he gets away, but Odoamne jumps in with a harsh lesson and teaches Unicorns what it means to feel pain. Kold's going to jump onto Kobbe, but he can't do too much, and Splyce have somehow turned it around. They get the GA, they're going to get 2 kills out of this, you have the feel. Kold doesn't really have anywhere to go. Splyce will chase him down, and eventually the tongue lash will hit home and Splyce get 2 kills.
And the defense happens once again. Splyce hold the line. Unicorns cannot end the game, and the game continues.
You told me they'd finish it, Vedius.
Yeah, but I knew I'd cast the curse. It was always going to happen.
Nexus towers didn't really take too much damage there as well, and it seemed odd because Splyce just didn't seem to take damage during that fight.
I don't know, man. These fights are insane. Very rarely do you get to cast these kind of late game shenanigans. Oh wait, oh look at Kasing, he's going for the play. 2 are dead on the side of Unicorns. They're rushing this, the double support play in the base.
Exileh and Samux are in the base of Splyce as well, looking to see if they can get those Nexus towers, but Splyce will be able to get down that inhibitor in the mid lane. Nisqy's there as well. Are they just going for the end? There's only one Nexus tower. It's a base race,
Here we go.
It's a base race, let's go. Unicorns top side, Splyce bot side, let's see what happens. Exileh, Samux, Totoro trying to push in. The Nexus tower's low, and Splyce might just have this one. Odoamne's dead, and now Unicorns can continue, but they haven't got the Nexus towers. WhiteKnight's back alive. He's going to try and defend. He's dead. Unicorns top side, Nexus towers. They're on the Nexus to get the Vedius. The Unicorns, they've done it. There you have it. And Splyce take down the Nexus, and they take the win over the Unicorns.
Look at the elation on Splyce. They go for the late game decision. 3 members versus 4, and it was all because those Nexus towers were still alive. What an amazing way to end that game. That is the best way to end a 60-minute back and forth. Splyce get their first win in the European LCS of 2018.
What a monumental match. What a way to end as well. Commiserations, of course, to the Unicorns of Love. It was 400 HP in it, basically, at the end. But what dedication from them as well. What shot calling to make that call to say, we're going to go for it.
What an atrocious game.
It was a good game.
I mean, it was entertaining. It was entertaining, but you could see the struggles that both these comps had.
But the teams played well. Exileh played well. Kold did a pretty good job. They shut down Odoamne.
I mean, there were individual moments of greatness, but there were also many moments of what was that? Kold getting the steal was great, but for Splyce, it really hurt. Their big opportunity to turn the game around. Odoamne did not have the best game of his life. We didn't really see him have a huge impact, but at the very end, the wave clear, the damage, the defense that he had alongside Kobbe was just enough to keep Splyce in it. And you can just see it is so frustrating to lose a game like that.
It's a very difficult feeling to have to go through that sort of game, but you can hear the Unicorns of Love faithful are still cheering on their team. They know how much that must have hurt. Oh, yeah. Unicorns will come back kicking next week, I am sure.
I'm sure that overall that early game was a much better performance compared to what they had yesterday. They should be happy with that. And Splyce should be happy to get a win because they really did struggle. Odo fell behind very hard in the early portions of the game due to all the pressure that was put down on him. But they were patient, they were calm, and they were able to find a couple avenues back in. But at the end of the day, it all came down to a base race. And
it's my favorite sort of end of the game. That's the sort of game I like. Remember to give us your vote for player of the game at LOL eSports on Twitter. Our analysts have picked Kobbe, Nisqy, and Xerxe as your candidates, and I'm sure you guys could pick many more as well from the majority of players in that game. Splyce did bounce back after a very close game against Unicorns of Love. Let's head over to Pyra and hear from their jungler.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great cast. I know that's a slog to get through. And I think You know as well, Xerxe, that was a hard one. But, I mean, 60-plus minute game, you're playing Ivern. It's like you never left the Unicorns. How's it feel to get that big W?
It felt good to win against UOL, but I'll be honest, this game was horrible. We played this really bad, and we really have to work a lot to improve.
Well, at the end of the day, you still managed to pull out the win, and yeah, maybe it wasn't the cleanest victory that we've seen so far in the European LCS, but it's nice to see Splyce starting to live up to that hype. How is it playing on this team versus the only other team you've seen in LCS so far as the Unicorns?
It's been great so far. We started slow, and we still have a lot to improve, as you can see. But it's great because nobody has huge ego, and everyone is willing to improve and accept criticism.
Oh, it's really nice to hear. And I mean, it seems like you guys really enjoy playing together. I mean, you can't not hug people on the team
after the
afterwards.
60-minute game.
I can't believe it, man. Like that was just such an incredible performance to just hold on mentally. I mean, how do you keep your head in those like back and forth engages where anyone could end the game?
I have no idea, but right now I'm so tired and thirsty.
All right, man. I'll go ahead and let you go then. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the win, and I hope to see more of them, maybe a little bit shorter next time.
Yeah, sure.
All right, well, that's about it for us. But don't go anywhere. In 3.5, Fnatic versus H2K is kicking off, so we'll see you guys right about then.